Adam and Sarah had built a life most people envied. Married for 15 years, they lived in a beautiful home in a well-to-do neighborhood, surrounded by manicured lawns and towering trees. Their life was one of quiet affluence, lavish vacations, elegant dinner parties, and a marriage that seemed to glide effortlessly through the years. They didn't have children, a decision they'd made early in their relationship, and it allowed them the freedom to pursue careers, hobbies, and the kind of lifestyle that often drew admiration. But lately, Adam had started noticing cracks in the perfect veneer of their life together. Subtle changes, small enough to dismiss if they hadn't been piling up over the past few months. Sarah, who had always been warm and attentive, now seemed distant. Her laughter, once so easily given, felt restrained, like a sound she forced out of obligation. She was spending more time at work, often coming home late with vague excuses about meetings running long or last-minute deadlines. First, Adam tried to ignore it. He reminded himself that Sarah had always been ambitious, that her career as an interior designer often demanded flexibility. But something about her tone when she explained her lateness didn't sit right with him. It lacked the usual warmth and familiarity. Instead, it felt rehearsed, like she was delivering lines in a play. One evening, as they sat at the dinner table, the distance between them felt almost tangible. Adam had prepared one of Sarah's favorite meals, a simple but rich pasta dish, hoping to recreate some of the intimacy they'd shared in the past. But she barely touched her plate, her eyes flicking toward her phone every few minutes. "You've been working a lot lately," Adam said, trying to sound casual. "Is everything okay?" Sarah looked up, startled, as though she hadn't realized he was speaking. "Oh yeah, just a busy season," she replied quickly, brushing a strand of her dark hair behind her ear. "You know how clients can be, always changing their minds at the last minute." Adam nodded, but the explanation felt thin. Sarah's projects had always been demanding, but she'd never let them consume her this way. Later that night, as they lay in bed, the gulf between them felt wider than ever. Sarah had fallen asleep almost immediately, her back turned to him, while Adam stared at the ceiling, his thoughts racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that the woman he had shared his life with for so long was slipping away from him. The next day, Adam decided to push the thought aside. He told himself he was being paranoid, that the changes he was noticing were just part of the ebb and flow of a long marriage. But as the weeks went by, the signs became harder to ignore. Sarah's late nights at work became more frequent, and her excuses grew less convincing. She started dressing differently, opting for more form-fitting clothes and expensive heels that seemed out of place in the casual elegance of her usual wardrobe. There was a new perfume too, something floral and sweet that Adam didn't recognize. One evening, while Sarah was in the shower, Adam's curiosity got the better of him. Her phone was sitting on the bathroom counter, and he couldn't resist picking it up. It was locked, of course. Sarah had always used a password, but what caught his attention was the name that flashed across the screen when a message notification popped up. "Jason." Adam stared at the phone, his stomach twisting. He couldn't remember Sarah mentioning anyone named Jason. Who was he? And why was Sarah getting messages from him late at night? When Sarah emerged from the shower, Adam quickly set the phone back down, pretending to flip through a magazine. She smiled at him, but there was something guarded in her eyes. "Everything okay?" she asked, toweling off her hair. "Yeah," Adam replied, forcing a smile. "Just catching up on some reading." But inside, his mind was racing. In the days that followed, Adam started paying closer attention to Sarah's behavior. He noticed how she always seemed to keep her phone close, never leaving it unattended. When he asked about her day, her answers felt rushed, like she was eager to change the subject. One evening, as Sarah prepared to leave for another late meeting, Adam decided to test her. "Want me to drive you?" he offered, keeping his tone light. "I can wait in the car and bring you home after." Sarah froze for a moment, her eyes darting toward her purse. "That's sweet, but it's fine," she said quickly. "It's just easier if I drive myself. I'll probably be late, and I don't want you waiting around." Adam nodded, but his suspicions deepened. Her refusal wasn't just dismissive, it was defensive. That night, as he sat alone in their quiet home, Adam couldn't help but feel the weight of doubt pressing down on him. The life he and Sarah had built, the love they had shared for 15 years, suddenly felt fragile, like it could crumble at any moment. He didn't want to believe that Sarah could be hiding something from him, but the signs were becoming impossible to ignore. And deep down, Adam knew he couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The growing unease gnawed at Adam like a splinter lodged deep in his mind. The signs were there: Sarah's distant demeanor, the cryptic late nights, and the messages from someone named Jason. But Adam couldn't bring himself to confront her directly. Not yet. He needed something concrete, something undeniable. The breakthrough came unexpectedly, over beers with his longtime friend, Josh. It was a Friday night, and Adam had invited Josh over to watch the game, hoping to distract himself from the whirlwind of suspicions clouding his thoughts. Josh had always been a straightforward guy, the kind of friend who didn't sugarcoat things. Halfway through their second beer, Josh leaned back on the couch, his gaze lingering on Adam for a moment too long. "You've been quiet, man," Josh said. "Everything okay?" Adam hesitated, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "Yeah, just stuff with Sarah. She's been distant lately, working late all the time. Feels like something's off." Josh frowned, setting his beer down on the coffee table. "I wasn't gonna say anything, but now I'm wondering if I should." Adam's stomach dropped. He leaned forward, his voice tight. "What do you mean?" Josh scratched the back of his neck, clearly uncomfortable. "I saw her a few nights ago. I was at that new wine bar downtown and I saw Sarah there, with some guy. They looked pretty cozy." Adam's blood ran cold. "Some guy? Who?" "I don't know him," Josh admitted. "Tall, dark hair, sharp suit." They were at a corner table, laughing and leaning in close. "It wasn't friendly, Adam. It looked like a date." Adam's hands tightened around the glass. His mind raced, trying to reconcile Josh's words with the woman he'd loved for 15 years. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Josh sighed, shaking his head. "I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't want to stir things up if it was nothing, but now, I don't think it's nothing." For a moment, Adam couldn't speak. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. He forced himself to nod. "Thanks, Josh. I needed to hear that." Josh looked at him, concern etched into his features. "What are you gonna do?" Adam didn't answer right away. He knew what he had to do, even if the thought of it felt like a betrayal in itself. The next morning, Adam called a private investigator. The decision wasn't easy, but he knew he needed answers, real, undeniable answers. The PI, a no-nonsense woman named Clara, listened carefully as Adam explained the situation. "I'm not jumping to conclusions," Adam said, his voice tight with a mix of anger and desperation. I need to know for sure." Clara nodded. "I understand. If there's something going on, we'll find out. I'll need her schedule, usual routines, and any details about this guy you mentioned." Adam provided everything he could. Sarah's work hours, the locations of her favorite spots, and Josh's description of the man. Clara assured him that she'd start right away. The waiting was unbearable. Every moment Sarah was away felt like an eternity, the silence of the house amplifying Adam's doubts. He started noticing things he hadn't before. The way Sarah's phone always seemed to vibrate late at night. The way her laughter felt hollow when she shared stories about her day. After a week, Clara called with an update. "We've been following her," she said, her tone matter-of-fact. "She's been meeting with a man at various locations, restaurants, coffee shops, even a hotel lobby. His name is Alex Darnell, a financial consultant. They seem close." Adam felt like the ground beneath him had given way. "A hotel lobby?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Clara confirmed. "There's no evidence yet of anything physical, but their behavior suggests more than a professional relationship." Adam thanked her and hung up, his mind a storm of emotions. He wanted to confront Sarah, to demand answers, but he also knew he needed more. If she was lying to him, she'd find a way to twist the truth. The next day, Clara sent photos, grainy but clear enough to show Sarah and Alex together. In one, they were sitting at a cafe, their heads close as they talked. In another, Alex was holding Sarah's arm as they walked down the street. Adam stared at the images, his chest tight with betrayal. The woman in those photos wasn't the Sarah he thought he knew. This Sarah was someone else entirely, a stranger he couldn't recognize. That night, Sarah came home late again, her smile strained as she kissed Adam on the cheek. "Sorry, work ran over," she said, heading straight to the shower. Adam watched her retreating figure, the lies rolling off her so effortlessly. He clenched his fists, the weight of the truth pressing down on him. He knew the time was coming to confront her, but he had to be sure he was ready. There would be no turning back. The call from Clara came late in the afternoon, just as Adam was beginning to feel like he couldn't take another second of the suffocating uncertainty. He'd been walking on eggshells around Sarah, forcing himself to act normal as she moved through their home like nothing was wrong. But deep down, he was bracing for the truth, even if it shattered him. "Adam," Clara's voice was steady but carried a weight that made his stomach churn. "I've got everything you need. It's definitive. Do you want to meet and go over it in person?" "Yes," Adam replied, his throat tight. The sooner, the better. They met later that evening at Clara's modest office downtown. The walls were lined with filing cabinets and a small corkboard cluttered with photos and notes from various cases. Clara gestured for Adam to sit, setting a folder down on the desk between them. "I won't sugarcoat this," she began. "What I found isn't easy to see or hear, but it's thorough. You deserve the truth, no matter how difficult it is." Adam nodded, his palms sweaty as he reached for the folder. Inside were photos of Sarah and Alex, clearer than the earlier ones. There they were, sitting in a dimly lit restaurant, their hands almost touching on the table. Another showed Alex wrapping his arm around Sarah's shoulders as they walked into a hotel. But it was the recordings that drove the knife in. Clara handed him a pair of headphones, her expression unreadable as she pressed play. At first, Adam heard the faint clatter of dishes and the hum of a restaurant. Then came Sarah's voice, unmistakable despite the low quality of the recording. "I can't keep lying to him, Alex," she said, her tone hushed but tinged with frustration. "It's exhausting. He's starting to notice things. He's not stupid." "I know," Alex replied, his voice smooth and calm. "But you said you'd handle it. We can't keep sneaking around like this. Maui will give us time to figure things out. A clean slate."
Adam froze.
Maui? His mind raced as the words replayed in his head. Sarah had told him just last week that she'd be going to Las Vegas for a work conference. She'd even shown him an itinerary, complete with a flight schedule and hotel reservation. But now, here she was, making plans to escape to Maui with Alex. "Are you sure about Maui?" Sarah asked in the recording, her voice quieter now. "Positive," Alex said confidently. "I've already booked everything. You just need to tell him something believable." Adam yanked the headphones off, his heart hammering in his chest. He clenched the edge of the desk, struggling to process what he'd just heard. "They've been planning this for weeks," Clara said gently, her tone professional but empathetic. "I have more recordings, but they're variations of the same conversations. Making excuses, planning their trip, and talking about what their future might look like." Adam couldn't bring himself to listen to the rest. The photos, the recordings, the blatant lies about Las Vegas. It was all too much. He leaned back in the chair, his fists trembling as rage and heartbreak coursed through him. "When does the flight leave?" he asked finally, his voice low and measured. "Tomorrow evening," Clara said, sliding a copy of the itinerary across the desk. "She's using the same cover story about the Vegas conference. Alex is flying separately, but they'll meet at the Maui resort." Adam stared at the itinerary, the name of the resort glaring back at him like an accusation. He couldn't decide what hurt more, the betrayal itself or the meticulous effort Sarah had put into hiding it. When he returned home that night, Sarah was sitting on the couch, flipping through a travel magazine. She looked up and smiled, but Adam could see the strain behind her eyes. "Hey," she said casually, Long day. Yeah, Adam replied, forcing a smile as he hung up his coat. How about you? All set for your trip tomorrow? Almost, Sarah said, her voice light. Just a few last-minute things to pack. Adam nodded, sitting down across from her. He studied her face, searching for any hint of guilt or hesitation, but she looked calm, almost content. It made him sick. That night, as Sarah slept soundly beside him, Adam stared at the ceiling, the weight of the evidence pressing down on him. He knew he couldn't let her get away with this, not without consequences. Tomorrow, everything would come to light, and Sarah's carefully constructed web of lies would collapse around her. The discovery of Sarah's planned trip to Maui with Alex had left Adam reeling. He couldn't sleep that night, his mind racing with thoughts of what else she might be hiding. The woman he had trusted for 15 years had spun a web of lies so intricate that it was impossible to untangle without finding the source. That's when he decided to dig deeper. The next morning, while Sarah was out running errands, Adam called Clara. Her investigation had been thorough, but Adam needed one more piece of the puzzle, something that could show the extent of Sarah's betrayal. I need to know everything, he told Clara over the phone. Bank accounts, property records. Anything that could show me what she's been doing behind my back. I understand, Clara replied. Give me a day, and I'll get back to you with whatever I can find. By the evening, Clara had delivered. She called Adam with a lead that sent chills down his spine. She purchased an apartment 6 months ago, Clara said. It's in her name alone. $300,000 in cash. The address is in the city, just a few miles from where Alex works. Adam gripped the phone tightly, his mind spinning. An apartment? Sarah had never mentioned buying another property. Their finances had always been open, or so he'd thought. For her to hide something like this, it wasn't just betrayal, it was a double life. Do you have the exact address? He asked. Clara gave it to him, and Adam didn't waste any time. He drove to the address that same night, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. The building was sleek and modern, tucked into a quiet, upscale neighborhood. It wasn't the kind of place you rented for convenience. It was a place you bought to live a life you wanted to keep secret. Adam approached the front desk, pretending to be casual. Hi, I'm here to see Sarah Hunter, he said, flashing a strained smile. I forgot the apartment number, though. Can you help me out? The concierge barely glanced at him before typing into the computer. Apartment 4C, she said. Thanks, Adam replied, his heart pounding. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt like an eternity. When the doors opened, he stepped into the hallway, his footsteps echoing on the polished floors. He found 4C easily, the brass numbers glinting under the dim light. Standing in front of the door, Adam hesitated. He'd taken Sarah's spare set of keys from their home before leaving, unsure if he'd even get this far. Now, with the key in his hand, he felt a strange mix of dread and determination. He slid the key into the lock and turned it. The door opened with a quiet click, and Adam stepped inside. The apartment was immaculate, decorated with a modern, minimalist aesthetic that felt completely foreign to him. This wasn't the home he shared with Sarah. This was something entirely different. His gaze swept the living room, taking in the sleek leather couch, the glass coffee table, and the abstract art on the walls. Everything was pristine, like it had been staged for a magazine shoot. But it was the small details that stopped him in his tracks. On the coffee table sat a stack of books he'd never seen before, alongside a pair of men's reading glasses. In the corner of the room, a guitar leaned against the wall. Alex's, Adam realized. Sarah had mentioned once that Alex played, back when she'd claimed he was just a work friend. Adam's chest tightened as he moved through the apartment. The kitchen was stocked with expensive wine and imported snacks, things Sarah had never bought for their home. The bedroom was even worse. The king-sized bed was draped with high-end linens, and on the nightstand sat a framed photo of Sarah and Alex, smiling as though they were a couple on vacation. The closet was the final blow. Inside, Adam found men's clothing, pressed shirts, tailored suits, casual sweaters, all neatly hung alongside Sarah's wardrobe. A collection of colognes sat on a small shelf, their bottles polished and arranged like a display. On the dresser, he found a jewelry box filled with expensive watches and cufflinks, as well as a stack of gift boxes. Inside one was an engraved gold bracelet with the initials S&A intertwined. Adam stared at the bracelet, his hands shaking. This wasn't just an affair. Sarah had built a life here, a life with Alex, funded by money she'd hidden from him. The betrayal was complete. As he left the apartment, locking the door behind him, Adam felt a strange sense of clarity. The doubts, the second-guessing, the hope that maybe he was wrong, it was all gone. Sarah had chosen her path, and now Adam would choose his. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about justice, and Adam knew exactly how to deliver it. Adam sat in his car outside the sleek apartment building, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His mind churned with a potent mix of betrayal and cold, calculated determination. He knew he couldn't let Sarah and Alex walk away unscathed. They had lied, cheated, and manipulated, building a secret life together while leaving destruction in their wake. But Adam wasn't going to confront them in anger. No, his revenge would be precise, poetic, and utterly devastating. The idea had come to him shortly after discovering the apartment. Sarah's betrayal was intertwined with Alex's, and Adam realized he wasn't the only one caught in the crossfire. Alex had a wife, Jessica. The two had met briefly at corporate events over the years, but Adam had never paid her much attention. Now she was the key to his plan. Adam reached out to Jessica with an anonymous message. He carefully laid out just enough evidence to pique her curiosity. A photo of Sarah and Alex walking hand in hand, a hint about the secret apartment. Jessica responded almost immediately, requesting to meet. They sat down at a quiet cafe, and Adam could see the pain etched on her face. Jessica was a sharp, confident woman, but this revelation had clearly shaken her. "I didn't want to believe it," she said, her voice trembling as she examined the photos Adam had provided. "But now it all makes sense. The late nights, the secretive behavior. I feel like such an idiot." "You're not an idiot," Adam replied, his voice calm but firm. "They betrayed us both, but we don't have to let them get away with it." Jessica looked up at him, her eyes narrowing slightly. "What are you suggesting?" Adam leaned forward, lowering his voice. "They've built their little fantasy world in that apartment. Let's give it to them, completely. I want to move their things there, everything that connects them to this betrayal. Let them see what they've done laid bare, with no way to deny it." Jessica considered the idea for a moment, a small, bitter smile forming on her lips. "I like the sound of that." Over the next week, they worked together in secret. Jessica had access to Alex's belongings, while Adam focused on Sarah's. Every evening, while their respective partners were away, they packed up clothes, personal items, and anything that symbolized the lies they'd been living. Jessica was relentless, going through Alex's things with surgical precision. She found love letters from Sarah, receipts from expensive dinners, and even plane tickets for their upcoming Maui getaway. Each item added fuel to her resolve. Adam, too, uncovered more than he'd expected. Sarah had kept a box of mementos hidden in their closet, photos of her and Alex, small gifts he'd given her, and even a journal where she'd written about their plans to start a new life together. Every page was a stab to Adam's heart, but it also strengthened his determination to see this through. When the day arrived, they loaded everything into a moving van and drove to the apartment. It was late in the evening, the city quiet and bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. Adam and Jessica worked quickly, unloading the van and arranging the items inside the apartment. They weren't careless. This wasn't about making a mess. Instead, they set everything up like a carefully staged exhibit. Sarah's clothes hung neatly in the closet next to Alex's. Their photos and mementos were displayed prominently on the coffee table. The plane tickets to Maui sat on the kitchen counter, alongside the wine they'd planned to share. By the time they finished, the apartment looked like a shrine to their betrayal, every corner filled with evidence of their lies. Adam and Jessica stepped back, surveying their work in silence. "It's perfect," Jessica said finally, her voice cold but satisfied.
Adam nodded.
They'll have no choice but to face it now. No more lies, no more pretending. Before leaving, they each left a note. Adam's was simple and direct. You wanted a life together? Here it is. Enjoy. Jessica's was equally pointed. I hope it was worth it. You've lost everything. As they locked the door and walked away, Adam felt a strange sense of relief. The anger and heartbreak were still there, but they no longer consumed him. He had taken control, forcing Sarah and Alex to confront the consequences of their actions. Jessica turned to him as they reached their cars. What now? Adam shrugged, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Now we let them figure out what to do with the mess they've made. They parted ways, each heading home to their respective lives, forever changed but stronger for having faced the truth. A week after their calculated revenge, Adam and Jessica had settled back into their separate lives. Though the betrayal still lingered like a bruise that hadn't fully healed, there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that Sarah and Alex had been forced to face the consequences of their actions. On a crisp Monday morning, Adam sat at his kitchen table, sipping his coffee and scrolling through the news on his tablet. The headlines were the usual mix of politics, sports, and local stories until one caught his eye. Tragic plane crash in the Pacific. No survivors reported. Adam frowned, his heart skipping a beat. He tapped the headline, the article loading slowly as if to prolong his dread. When the page finally appeared, his stomach sank. Flight 278 from Los Angeles to Maui crashed into the Pacific Ocean late last night due to reported engine failure. All 182 passengers and crew aboard the flight are presumed dead. Search and rescue teams are currently recovering debris and remains from the site. Adam stared at the screen, his breath caught in his throat. Flight 278. Maui. It was the same flight Sarah and Alex had planned to take for their so-called romantic escape. He read the article twice, his mind struggling to process the words. Could they really be gone? The thought left him frozen, his coffee forgotten and growing cold on the table. He debated whether to reach out to Jessica but decided to wait. Instead, he spent the next few hours glued to the news, watching updates trickle in about the crash. By early afternoon, Jessica called him. Her voice was shaky, a mixture of shock and disbelief. Adam, did you see the news? I did, Adam replied, his voice low. It was their flight. There was a long pause before Jessica spoke again, her words trembling. I can't believe it. They're gone. Just like that. Adam didn't know what to say. Despite everything, the anger and betrayal, the knowledge of their deaths didn't bring the satisfaction he thought it might. Instead, it left a strange void, an emptiness that he couldn't quite name. I thought I'd feel relieved, Jessica admitted, her voice breaking. After everything they did to us, I thought this would feel like justice, but it doesn't. It feels wrong.
Adam understood.
While he didn't mourn Sarah or Alex in the way he might have years ago, he couldn't shake the heaviness of the tragedy. For all their faults, they had been human beings, flawed and reckless but still capable of love and joy. And now, their lives had ended in the most abrupt and final way imaginable. The following days were a whirlwind of news coverage and speculation. The crash dominated the headlines, with reporters delving into the possible causes and sharing stories of the passengers. Adam learned more about the victims than he wanted to: parents traveling with their children, newlyweds on their honeymoon, retirees fulfilling bucket list dreams. It was a sobering reminder of how fragile life could be. Sarah's parents reached out to Adam, their voices thick with grief. Though they had been distant in the months leading up to the revelation of Sarah's betrayal, they still saw Adam as part of their family. She was difficult sometimes, her mother said through tears. But she loved you, Adam. Deep down, she did. Adam didn't know how to respond. He let them speak, offering quiet condolences while keeping his own feelings guarded. He didn't have the heart to tell them about the secret apartment, the lies, or the betrayal. It felt unnecessary now, like pouring salt on wounds that were already too deep. Jessica and Adam met once more, this time at a small park near her house. They sat on a bench overlooking a quiet pond, the autumn leaves rustling softly in the breeze. They were selfish and cruel, Jessica said, staring at the water. But no one deserves to die like that.
Adam nodded.
I thought exposing their betrayal would bring closure. I didn't expect this. Jessica turned to him, her eyes filled with sadness. What do we do now? Adam took a deep breath, the weight of everything pressing down on him. We move on, he said simply. We keep going. For ourselves. Jessica nodded, a faint glimmer of hope flickering in her expression. As they parted ways, Adam felt a strange sense of clarity. The betrayal, the revenge, and even the tragedy, it was all behind him now. Life had dealt him a cruel hand, but it had also given him a chance to start anew. And for the first time in months, Adam felt ready to take it. The weeks following the crash passed in a haze for Adam and Jessica. The chaos of grief, disbelief, and endless legal paperwork consumed their days. Though Sarah and Alex's deaths had left them hollow, the practical matters of their estates forced them to keep moving. In a way, the bureaucracy was a strange comfort, a distraction from the emotional wreckage that loomed over their lives. Sarah's secret apartment became the first thing Adam and Jessica decided to address together. Its existence had been a testament to their former partner's betrayal, a symbol of lies and deceit. Now, it was nothing more than a cold, empty shell filled with memories neither of them wanted to keep. I can't stand the thought of it sitting there, Jessica said one evening as they met to discuss their next steps. It's like a monument to everything they did to us. Then we get rid of it, Adam replied simply. Sell it and start fresh. Together, they met with a real estate agent, who marveled at the apartment's high-end finishes and prime location. We could list it for $750,000, maybe even more if the market's right, she said, jotting down notes. Adam and Jessica exchanged a glance. The amount was staggering, almost surreal, but it also felt like a way to reclaim control of their lives. The sale moved quickly, and within weeks, the apartment was off their hands. The money, split between them, was both a windfall and a strange reminder of the price of betrayal. For Adam, it wasn't just about the financial gain. It was a symbolic end to Sarah's hidden life. Shortly after, the insurance settlements came through. Both Adam and Jessica received substantial payouts from their respective partners' life insurance policies. A final irony in the twisted saga they had endured. With $750,000 each in their accounts, they found themselves at a crossroads. One evening, as they sat together in Jessica's kitchen, surrounded by boxes from her ongoing attempt to declutter her home, Adam broached the subject that had been lingering between them. What do we do now? He asked, his voice quiet but steady. We've got the money. We've cleared out the apartment. But what's next? Jessica looked at him, her expression thoughtful. I've been thinking about that, she admitted. I don't want to stay here. Not in this house, not in this city. There's too much history.
Adam nodded.
I feel the same way. Everywhere I go, I'm reminded of Sarah, of everything that happened. Jessica hesitated, then spoke carefully. What if we started over? Together? Adam stared at her, surprised but not entirely unprepared for the suggestion. Over the past few weeks, their connection had deepened. They had leaned on each other, shared their pain, and found comfort in the understanding that only they could provide. The idea of moving forward together didn't feel rushed. It felt right. You really want to do this? Adam asked, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Jessica returned the smile, a warmth in her eyes that he hadn't seen in months. I think we've both earned a fresh start. Don't you? The decision was made quickly but carefully. They sold Jessica's house, donated most of their belongings to charity, and used a portion of their newfound wealth to purchase a modest but beautiful home in a coastal town far from the city. The house was nothing like the places they had lived before. It was simple, cozy, and filled with light. There were no echoes of the past here, no reminders of Sarah or Alex, just the promise of a new beginning. In the months that followed, Adam and Jessica built a life together. They redecorated the house, taking care to choose furniture and decor that reflected their shared taste, rather than the preferences of their former partners. They spent quiet evenings cooking together, walking along the beach, and talking about their hopes for the future. Though the scars of their past lingered, they no longer defined them. Adam and Jessica had found something unexpected in the aftermath of betrayal. A second chance at happiness. One afternoon, as they sat on their porch overlooking the ocean, Jessica reached for Adam's hand. "Do you ever think about them?" she asked softly. "Sometimes," Adam admitted. "But not the way I used to. It doesn't hurt anymore. It just feels like another life." Jessica nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "I'm glad we found each other," she said after a moment. "Me too," Adam replied, squeezing her hand gently. As the waves crashed against the shore and the sun dipped lower in the sky, they sat in peaceful silence, knowing that their new life together was a testament to their resilience. The past was behind them, and the future was theirs to create. The coastal town became a sanctuary for Adam and Jessica, a place where they could leave the shadows of their past behind. The house they'd made their own filled with laughter, shared meals, and late-night conversations about everything from their favorite childhood memories to their wildest dreams for the future. What had started as a partnership born of pain and betrayal had grown into something neither of them had expected. Hope. Months passed, and with each day, their bond deepened. Adam had always admired Jessica's strength, her ability to face hardship with grace. But now he saw the tender, playful side of her too. She had a knack for turning ordinary moments into something special. Dancing barefoot in the kitchen while making dinner, pointing out shapes in the clouds during lazy afternoons on the porch. Jessica, in turn, found herself drawn to Adam's quiet resilience. He wasn't just kind and thoughtful. He had a steady calm about him that made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in years. He had a knack for fixing things, both around the house and in her heart. One evening, as they sat on the beach watching the sun dip below the horizon, Adam reached for her hand. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice steady but soft. "About what?" Jessica asked, turning to look at him. "About us," he said, meeting her gaze. "About how far we've come. I never thought I'd be able to trust someone again, let alone feel this way. But with you, it's different. Feels right." Jessica smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "It does, doesn't it?" Adam took a deep breath and pulled a small box from his pocket. Opening it, he revealed a simple but elegant ring that glinted in the fading light. "I know this might seem fast," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "But life has taught me not to waste time. Jessica, will you marry me?" Tears welled in Jessica's eyes as she nodded. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking with happiness. "Of course, yes." Their wedding was a small, intimate affair on the beach, with only a few close friends and their newfound neighbors in attendance. The ceremony was simple but beautiful, with the sound of waves as their backdrop and the soft glow of lanterns lighting the evening sky. For Adam and Jessica, the wedding wasn't just a celebration of their love. It was a declaration that they had survived the storms of their past and emerged stronger, ready to face whatever came next together. A few months after their wedding, Jessica sat across from Adam at the breakfast table, a soft smile playing on her lips. "You're in a good mood," Adam said, raising an eyebrow as he sipped his coffee. "I have something to tell you," Jessica replied, her voice teasing. "Oh?" Adam asked, setting his mug down. Jessica reached into her pocket and pulled out a small white envelope, sliding it across the table. Adam opened it carefully, his brow furrowing as he pulled out the contents. A pregnancy test. His eyes widened as he looked up at Jessica. "Are you serious?" Jessica nodded, her smile breaking into a laugh as tears filled her eyes. "We're going to have a baby, Adam." For a moment, Adam was speechless, his emotions crashing over him like a tidal wave. Then he stood, pulling Jessica into his arms and holding her tightly. "A baby?" he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't believe it." From that day forward, their lives became a whirlwind of preparations and excitement. They transformed one of the spare bedrooms into a nursery, painting the walls a soft, calming shade and filling it with books, toys, and tiny clothes. As the months passed, Adam and Jessica found joy in every moment, from the first ultrasound to Jessica's growing belly. Their house, once a quiet refuge, was now alive with the sounds of anticipation and love. when their daughter was born, a healthy, bright-eyed little girl they named Lily. Adam held her in his arms and felt a sense of completeness he hadn't thought possible. Standing in the hospital room with Jessica by his side, Adam looked at the family they had built together and knew they had truly left the past behind. Their love had been forged in the fires of betrayal and loss, but it had grown into something unshakable. With Lily in their arms and their future stretching out before them, Adam and Jessica were ready to embrace the life they had fought so hard to create. A life full of love, trust, and endless possibilities. It was, at last, a happy ending.